Well, I've been in California for 25 years. I'm Swiss originally, and I picked up some fun habits, in fact, which I practice in Hawaii sometimes, such as surfing. I just got back from Maui, where there was a great run of big waves, and I'm an amateur big wave surfer, so I have a lot of time on Maui doing that. But which is somewhat unconventional for a Swiss guy, who has grown up on the lake essentially. Um, but I came to San Francisco at a time in the mid '90s where technology was really starting to go outside of the lab, outside of the enterprise environment, and into people's lives, especially into people's everyday lives. And it was a fascinating time to start my practice, to start designing after school. I went to Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, and San Francisco seemed to be the perfect place where, in fact, I would be able to cross boundaries, my own boundaries in terms of my background, being Swiss and being European and US educated, but also the boundary between design and technology, which it's hard to remember a time in the mid '90s when technology was really seen as absent of design. In fact, most people in Silicon Valley, most entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, didn't see design having much value, bringing much value. It was very much engineering driven. And so, I think the first boundaries that I worked really hard. I mean, it was really a challenge to break into the technology space, was to show that design was a way that technology would be better accepted, would be shaped to really respond to user needs, to human needs, to people needs, not just a stack of features on top of features on top of features with all of the complexity that brings. And I think since then, essentially my practice, the small office that we started with Fuse Project has grown to 75 people now. But the practice has been to bring together the different disciplines of design and apply them at the service of ideas. And so we have, branding, we have to some technologists on staff. We have graphic design, packaging, environments. We work on spaces, obviously industrial design, digital design, user experience, all of this under one roof. Because another unique element, kind of boundary-less element of Fuse Project is the fact that we are multidisciplinary. And when I founded Fuse Project in 99, 2000, most studios were highly specialized, focused on one practice. And I really believe that design is and a great experience, a great product, a great startup, a great environment is really at the intersection of these different practices. How it's branded, how it's shaped, how the experience, the digital and physical experience come together. And that's a few, there's definitely a few projects here that I'm excited to share that do that really bring together, remove the boundaries of design practices and bring all those practices into one result, one direction. Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's very much at the core of Fuse Project. So as you noted, the name Fuse Project is about fusing different disciplines at the service of an idea. And the beginning, that was both the sort of the promised land, but also the challenge, because as you noted, terminology is quite different from discipline to discipline. Um, um, the maybe the same ideas exist in different design disciplines, but they're not always spoken in the same way. They're not even verbalized in the same way. And so it seems simple. You would think, oh, having a multidisciplinary studio is something that anybody could do. And honestly, it's been 20 years of Fuse projects, and every year I'm like, well, there's going to be, another one or another five or another 10 studios who are, building a multidisciplinary approach. And what we figured out after a few years is that actually what we have been doing is really hard to do. It's really a matter of everyday practice, but it's really a matter of the culture of the office, how people work together, but also how they sit in the office, how they have fun together. That is all absolutely essential. And I would say that the people that we hire are highly capable specialists, again, whether it's in brand or user experience and digital or industrial design or environments, architecture, interiors. They're highly skilled specialists. And what they always say is they're excited to come into an environment where they will work with different disciplines. It's actually one of the main impetus of people applying to our studio from all around the world, is their desire to take their own work and see it be amplified really by these other designers, these other practitioners. And when to be specific about your answer, or about your question, which is, do we have people sitting in groups? Do we have leaderships? So yes, we do have leadership. We do have directors of environments or industrial design, but they people sit all around the office in a mixed way. So there's no groups or departments. There is people getting together for lunch, for with leadership, etc., under their own practice, but there isn't like a formal physical separation. And in fact, we built a whole office system based on our own needs, which was the need to touch base very quickly, as you said, on a minute by minute basis, rather than putting people in rooms for hours at a time in sort of long meetings. Of course, we still have meetings. We haven't eliminated them entirely, but what we've realized is to practice design in the flow, in the um, um, and to stay in the flow of the questions and the ideas and the opportunities that come up. Proximity is important, and being able to have a lot of adjacent spaces that people can just, they can come to my desk, or I can go to anybody's desk, and I can sit there. And through this new system we designed with Herman Miller called Public Office Landscape, you have actually a comfortable chair right at your desk. It's like a little mini office suite, but in an open plan fashion. I can show you. I don't know how you want to do the sharing part, but maybe you edit that into the conversation later, or I can share now. For example, I have a visual of somebody walking through the office. So this is a couple of visuals about the office. So you can see it's open plan. The system that I described, the Public Office Landscape by Herman Miller, provides a chair at every desk, but a comfortable one. You can do, and then it can be reconfigured in many different ways. So the whole idea is to have lots of touch points, lots of places that people can get together and sit down and discuss, and move the projects along. And the philosophy, for us is, pretty much every project will have 3, 4, 5 different disciplines sitting in all of the meetings, whether it's people doing strategy and research, whether it's again, people from different disciplines, industrial design, architecture, furniture, etc. But when they sit down together and work together, we never know where the great idea is going to come from. where the idea that will catalyze the project and get us all really jazzed about it. And this is really something I love, because a whole project can be initiated really by anyone in any discipline. So if it's a young designer that is an industrial designer that has a concept or an idea, and we like it, and we feel as a team that this is like the right direction, suddenly you see it appear in digital ways, in environmental ways, in graphic ways. And if it's a graphic designer's idea, suddenly he sees his the concept being developed in the in the environment, in hardcore products. So there is something really empowering, because as a graphic designer, as an industrial designer, you're contributing your part, and you're working on this part that people will experience, but your concept is also being suddenly stretched across all these different parts of the project. And I think that's a very motivating part for me when I get up in the morning to go to work, and for for everyone, for all the designers on the team. So now you have an idea of what the studio looks like and feels like. I think those are two very different ideas in my humble opinion here. I think diversity is very important at Fuse Project. I mean, we have people from 19 or 20 different nationalities. We have about 25, 28 spoken languages within this small team, which is really extraordinary. We've always hired from all around the world. Um, and have a real balance, gender balance in the office, and are really true believers from day one, that diversity of background, but also diversity of ideas is really critical to doing great work, and really critical to great results. I mean, companies, businesses, institutions need it. And so, I think that's one part of your question. The other part of your question is a little bit sort of you know separation that exists between these different professions. And when I founded Fuse Project, I really looked back at these multidisciplinary studios I admired. The George Nelson work environment and studio, the Charles and Ray Eames studio in Venice, California. Which those places had all kinds of different designers, practitioners, creatives, in within those offices. And what I noticed in the mid '90s when I started working at different firms is how specialized everyone was, and how projects were more of a relay game, meaning you may work on one part over here, and then it had to be translated into a graphic design or a packaging design or an environmental design by completely different people. And I don't, there are amazing specialized studios that we collaborate with all the time in engineering and architecture and in structural. But I would say that having at the creative onset, having uh, kind of breaking the boundaries of the different fields of design in our own house, in our own studio, is, as I said earlier, not easy to do. But once you have that, once you have the formula, once people are trained for it, the results are, in my opinion, incomparable to just having designed something in a siloed, professional environment, specialized environment. Actually, I feel like sharing a couple of projects, just because I think they illustrate this notion really well. Um,
Please do.
Here, I'm going to share again.
Yeah, please do.
And Um, so so this is many of the projects we work on are done with um, young startups, often at MIT or Stanford, people emerging out of those schools, or even some of these projects are um, school graduate projects that become the real thing. This is a project called Ori, and it's a name that we designed. I mean, we came up with the name as well as our studio as partners to this MIT-based startup. And Ori is about making very small environments livable. 350, 450, 500 square feet studios, junior studios as they're sometimes called, are not livable at all because your kitchen and your living room and your bed are all like within a foot or two of each other. And so how to be more efficient, environmentally efficient, how to have more affordable housing depends on our ability to design small spaces for livability. So I'll show you this very quickly. And this really sort of crosses boundaries. So you can see here, this is an apartment. It looks like a 400 square foot apartment or so. Somebody's working at a desk. There's a small living room over there. And it feels like an office with a couch. But as you put it away, it becomes a closet. And somebody can have their clothes in there, have storage. Those small studio apartments tend to have lack of storage and no closet. Um, and as things go, there is a bed that comes out, and so you can see now the living room, the entertainment system on the left, and the desk that was on the left is all compressed in one side of the apartment, and there's a queen size bed in what feels like a more enclosed, intimate bedroom. And so, Ori, is really one of these startups that I love because it's all about crossing boundaries. Furniture becoming roboticized, architecture melding into adaptable, transformable furniture. That is, I see that as the future of. So you can see here, for example, we created the name. It's called Ori. The notion of folding and opening and transforming is part of the sort of animation of this brand. I mean, part of the identity. It's for us to have done all of the bits. This is another one. This is actually a video, but you can see there's a hardware element. So you just kind of tap on the furniture and it closes to different dimensions. Table, desk, entertainment systems, storage, all that is integrated into this. But this is a very good project to kind of illustrate the fact that the idea started, as a technology idea at MIT, but from a design standpoint, this is a good little image to finish on. From a design standpoint, it really is a blending of small interfaces. You can see there, this is a small user experience interface. You just tap on these different elements, furniture, layouts and environments, and architecture, as well as brand and identity. So that's a project that does that really well. And I'll show you one more project because it's a very important one for us. For about 12 years, we've worked with Samsung. And one day I woke up and I said, I don't know where to put the TV in my house because they're large objects. When they're turned off, they're just black. They're just an eyesore. It's hard to have a good environment with a big black thing on the wall. TVs are really just alive when they're turned on, but the rest of the day, they're really an eyesore. And so we so this was really a project that crossed boundaries, because we said the way the field exists today, the field of television, it's all about making them thinner and bigger and brighter and darker. And to make a television disappear in plain sight, we could integrate a sensor. And what the sensor does is that it allows for, I'm going to skip to this slide here. It allows for, the sensor is underneath the frame TV here, and it captures the amount of light in the room, and it changes the image. The image in the middle is a digital image of a piece of art, but it changes that image to feel like it is a photograph or a painting on paper. And so by adapting it to the light environment in the room, it disappears in plain sight. And that was the goal of this project. And then the frames can be different colors, different materials. So this was an idea that was actually started in my living room, because I had all this art. My wife is an art advisor, and so she wouldn't accept a black screen on the wall. And as a designer, I also found that offensive. And so I looked at the wall in my house and I said, well, what about if the art and the art on the TV and the art on the wall would match tonally in terms of tone, color, back, in terms of the amount of light, so that you can't even tell that one is the other. And so this was really a user experience, I would say a human experience idea that first we had to prove from the user experience standpoint. So we created all these mock-ups showing how the art transforms from I'll show you this, so how the art transforms, from a TV image to an art image, right? Going back and forth, and how you can pick and choose different art from all around the world. And now all these museums are participating, from the V&A to, all these museums in Spain and France and Austria, the Uffizi in Italy, all these places now. It's become the largest environment for digital art in the world. And this again was about crossing the boundary between art, human need, and industrial design. And in this particular case, that's not a startup, obviously, it's Samsung, but it's become a whole different branch, a whole different direction for TVs to go in. So it's a good illustration of how I think the influence and what drives us is crossing boundaries, literally. It's literally, we want to be contrarians, we want to challenge the status quo, in this case of the television space, where the only conversation was about how thin the TV is and how big it is and how bright it is. But now the conversation is, how does it adapt in your home environment? How does it disappear? How does it not take over your home space and in fact add style and knowledge and inspiration for people who own a frame TV? So I thought I would share these two projects with you. Yeah, so the sail chair was very, very interesting, because at the time the Irene chair was really the icon of what an office chair should be, and I really felt I felt really compelled, strongly compelled, to say to Herman Miller that the same sort of qualities of innovation and comfort and could be made available for a third of the price of an Irene chair, half to a third. And so it became this really fascinating exercise of creating something that is so advanced, but not so expensive. When you look at the back of the sail chair, it's the first time a non-structural back, a self-suspending back, a suspension back, is made out of a elastomeric, a rubber, type material that and that was a huge innovation and very expensive to develop and create a large tool for it. But once you have that tool, it takes only a minute to make the entire back of the chair. And so suddenly you have used the efficiency and the efficacy of industrial design, mass production, to create something that is more readily available for for a larger number of people. And what's so interesting for me too is that the sail chair is an international success. It's a chair that you will find in Asia. It's a chair that you will find in Europe, in Africa, in the Middle East, really everywhere. And it's because it's a little bit smaller in scale. It doesn't take over the space. It's also a little bit more quiet than other office chairs. It has, it doesn't have a lot of swoopy curves and lines. But when you come close to it, the innovations of the design, the comfort, the ergonomics, the touch points, all really sort of delicately designed. So you feel the design when you sit in it, when you use it, when you move, when you're in movement, when you're in the chair, rather than the chair screaming design from across the room. And so those were all sort of important notions of the design of this chair. And certainly, for me, it was a dream come true. I had done a couple of other projects with Herman Miller, but being able to design a task chair, which then I imagined, as a designer, I imagined that many people were going to use it. But it's a dream come true when you see it out there and people like you and others are like, I couldn't work without it, so it's great. It's true that when you draw, you tend to try to find a solution for each human activity in its own space. And you do your best at integrating and creating a fluid layout for all of them. But then when you start to think that, oh, those layouts don't have to be static, they can be in movement, they can transform, then it becomes almost confusing, because you're suddenly all of the thinking that has brought you to where you are as a designer or as an architect, all that isn't functioning in the same way. You're part of this profession, and the reason why I love being a designer is because we can all really practice design in our own way, and it isn't a static profession. I think the mistake is to see it as static professions, but there are new materials, new technologies, new ways of thinking, new human needs that can completely change the practice that you're accustomed to. And I think staying open for that, maybe even looking for those opportunities, which is what we do at Fuse Project. These are the dream projects, the ones that really sort of push your own understanding of a field or of an area. I mean, there's an interesting project here which I would love to share, which is with a news story, and I'll do that now. News Story is a nonprofit based in San Francisco, and their aim is to develop technology that then other nonprofits around housing, specifically housing people who make $200 or less a month in the developing world, where these technologies can be used, used to solve these problems. So I'll show you this. This is actually a project that's in completion now, and is 50 homes for a community in Mexico, specifically in the region of Tabasco of Mexico, who we designed these 3D printed buildings with. And 3D printing buildings is something that I believe, and prefabs as well, I believe are going to be part of every construction project, small or large, 5 to 10 years from now, for some of the elements or sometimes the entire elements. But what's interesting is this is the most advanced technology that exists today in terms of construction. And the fact that we could apply it to the most needy is really unique. Usually, the latest technologies goes to, the most fortunate people, the richest people. And in this case, it's the other way around. So I'll show you, um, um, I think I have a video of this. No, maybe not. Let me see. No, that's, I guess it's not a video, but you can see the results. These houses are 500 square feet or so, and they're 550 square feet. What's interesting about 3D printing is we were able to go to these families and really look at their needs, and then suddenly we realized that there were different types of layouts that worked better for different families. Some of them wanted a bodega in the front, some of them. And so, but with 3D printing, you can have 3 or 4 different layouts. And then as you print them, the 3D printer, the very large structure that prints these, can adapt them from one house to the other, or from one site to the other, where there's a lot of, as you go south in Mexico, culturally, cooking goes outdoors, for example. There's more ventilation. As you go north, cooking moves indoors, and which changes the layout. But being able to quickly adapt to the needs of a community and working with them on their specific needs was really unique. This is a question that I get a lot, and I think there's 2 things I would like to say. First, design has changed tremendously in the last 20, 25 years, and especially in the United States has become truly of prime importance. 25 years ago, I used to tell people I'm an industrial designer, and people would ask me if I designed factories. And Today, everyone knows what an industrial designer does, what an architect does. And I think you need to see yourself as very much in the tradition of, of the key professions that really change contemporary culture, that allow for transforming ideas to really take hold in our society, whether it's the environment, whether it's sustainability, whether it's inclusiveness, whether it's solving global problems such as homelessness and housing and the housing crisis. Your job as a creative across all the professions, including architecture, interior design, landscape architecture, etc., is to really enact and enable change in ways that it will be long lasting. The problem is that when we fail as designers, sometimes an entire industry fails because people don't find the future appealing. And our job as designers is to make the future appealing so we can go there, so we can get there, so we can move the future forward. The other advice, a little more practical advice, I often give is the fact that don't try to be a generalist to start with. I think when we hire at Fuse Project, when people come in, what we look for are people that are incredibly good at what they do, well trained, have the skills needed to build projects on their own independently. And so what I would focus in those early years of learning about being a designer, an architect, etc., is to be the best in your field you can be. The opportunities to collaborate across disciplines, across with varied creative professions will come from that. They will come from you being excellent at what you do. Then people will say, well, you're so good at solving these types of problems. I'm sure you would be good at doing this other thing, doing, applying your skills to something that is a little bit outside of the traditional definition of your profession. So as you get better at your job, which may start a little specialized, you get more opportunities to become what is called a T-bar person, right? Somebody with deep knowledge, vertical knowledge of their own field, but that is called upon to apply it horizontally and maybe in partnership or with other people. And so I think there is often a tendency for schools and institutions and young designers to feel like, oh, I want to be a generalist because that's the fun part. But I think you will get there faster if you're really good at that one profession that you chose.